Hello and welcome to Absolute Trust Talk. This is our video podcast here at Absolute Trust Counsel, and I'm Kirsten Howe. I'm the managing attorney of Absolute Trust Counsel, and I am joined here by my guest, Dean Myers. This is our second episode talking to Dean about insurance for business owners. And this time we're going to be talking about E&O insurance, errors and omissions, which is something near and dear to my heart. Just to remind everybody, Dean Myers, my guest, is the owner of Core Insurance Agency, which is an independently owned commercial insurance brokerage firm. So independent meaning he places with all the carriers. He's not tied to any one company, so he can get you the best insurance that's right for you. And he's located here in Walnut Creek, and he is our resident expert on insurance. So Dean, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me
back.
Yeah, welcome back. No, I enjoy this very much. Thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. So last time we talked about, we started out with sort of the basics of what insurance should we be looking at when we're just opening the doors with our new business. We covered workers' comp, we covered general liability, and then we covered property insurance. Right. Today, we're going to be talking about E&O. And I know your firm works with professional service companies like law firms, CPAs, doctors. What kinds of people need this kind of insurance, and what is it exactly that I'm talking about?
Right. No, it's a good question, because I think there are some maybe industries that need it but don't think they need it. We'll get to that in a minute. Yeah. So errors and omissions is when you don't meet an industry standard of care at its most basic form. Lawyers have rules of professional conduct. Now, that may or may not be the basis of a claim, but it's a great starting point. Same for accountants, AICPA, that's their industry organization, and that's their standard. Basically, any professional services firm that has a professional duty, it could be a professional trustee, and you failed the standard of care, then you would have an errors and omissions exposure.
Right.
So it's a standalone coverage. It's excluded under all other policies. It's depending upon, again, the risk profile. It's not that expensive, relatively speaking, I guess. If you've had claims, or if you're in a niche area of the law, say for example securities or intellectual property, you might be paying more than someone like yourself. But by and large, design professionals, the public trusts you as an architect or an engineer to design bridges and staircases that are used by the public. Well, they probably have the highest exposure, if you would, given that if they have faulty design work, they're exposing hundreds.
There could be a really catastrophic result.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and generally, just real quickly, this is coverage that you really want to use a specialist for, like general liability, workers' comp, property insurance, we discussed in the first podcast. Yeah. There are a plethora of outstanding brokers in California that can handle that.
Right.
But this is also carrier specialty too. So you're not going to be able to go to a State Farm and get this coverage. They probably don't want to touch it, for one thing. Mm-hmm. But there are specialty carriers that write just this coverage alone, errors and omissions.
Okay. So we obviously in my firm, we have, we call it malpractice insurance, but I guess the nicer way of talking about it is errors and omissions. We have that. And I'm guessing that, well, I think you said that different areas of law have different rates, and how this would all work. It would be very much dependent on what exactly you're doing. Just saying I'm a lawyer isn't enough information for the carrier to decide what they need to do for you. Because every year we have to fill out this, renewal, and we have to say how much of your practice is this, how much is that. Even it doesn't change from year to year because we only do one thing, but they need it in writing. They want to know. I didn't know. You just said patents, intellectual property. That could be a high premium type of practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, what drives it is the potential damages and the expense to cover those type of claims. For example, insurance defense law firms, those claims are rare and they're very inexpensive to defend, so their premiums are lower.
Oh, okay.
But for a patent, particularly if it's international patent, where the laws are different in other countries, you've got to have that specialty. They're not only very expensive claims, because it could be, I mentioned this in the first podcast, it could be you stole property rights on a baby seat design or something. Those are first of all, you got to have special counsel that the carrier has to hire to defend the claim, and they're going to charge a lot more than what most insurance defense panel counsel would charge.
Got it. Right.
And the resulting damages can be substantial.
Right. Okay. And then same would go for doctors. That's another group of professionals that need E&O coverage, but not every doctor is similarly exposed to risk. I mean, I always compare us to dermatologists when I'm giving an analogy. I say, we are the dermatologists of the legal industry. We don't have emergencies. Nobody's ever going to die as a result of something that we do. Nobody's going to get thrown in prison. We're pretty
hopefully
benign. So that's how I think of it. I'm guessing a dermatologist premium is lower than an obstetrician.
And you can go from there. Like, we insure a lot of ER docs, and anesthesiologists can be very expensive because they have access to all the good drugs.
Yeah.
And that could be a potential problem, even if it had nothing to do with an actual surgery. So thoracic surgeons, anybody, the exposures for med mal are enormous. However, most of the med mal claims, for example, and this is true for lawyers as well, aren't what you would think. They're not the traditional, well, we had a bad result. For lawyers, it could be, if you're an estate attorney and you handle that one-off family law matter. Well, you don't have that expertise, but you know the person, right? Or the couple, and you've got this conflict of interest in the whole thing. Maybe you missed a filing deadline. Same with med mal. The doctor operated on the wrong leg or amputated the wrong hand. Failure to diagnose. All these things, factor in, but they're not what many people would expect to see claims coming from, particularly with lawyers. With lawyers, more than 50% of the claims I see are purely administrative. Failure to appear. I just had a claim for failure to appear. You'd think that would be easy. But,
you would think, but...
Well, and I get it. Lawyers are very busy. This was a lawyer in, Santa Barbara, but he failed to appear in Los Angeles County. Well, it's a long drive. Anybody knows SoCal? And he just didn't get there. And, and there were other complicating factors, but not having a backup, not having, I don't know, but we're still into the weeds there with that one. But that's the good news, though. Lawyers do a great job managing their risk. If you're a personal injury attorney, you don't like car accident, then you shouldn't take those on if that's not your area of expertise.
Right.
So stay in your lane is what we like to say.
Yes, I think lawyers generally are pretty good about staying in their lane.
Very good.
Because I just think something about being a lawyer. I don't know which is the chicken and which is the egg. I don't know. But something about being a lawyer is you can't help but look at, okay, what could possibly go wrong in every situation that you encounter.
Right. Yeah.
That's just our personality. So yeah.
Lawyers are doing a great job. And the reason I say that is because your premiums or yours should be flat. It's a very robust marketplace because I think lawyers are doing a very good job of being selective, not only in terms of their area of practice, but the client selection.
Yeah. That's a part of it too. For sure. But doctors don't, depending on their situation, they don't really get to pick the clients, like if they're in the ER.
Well, they don't, particularly in the ER. And the dirty kind of little secret here is ER physicians, for the most part, are paid by number of visits. So the more patients they see in the ER, the more they get. So now they want to get it right. We're very blessed to have
Oh, yeah.
such amazing healthcare providers and the facilities. But if they only see 2 patients a day versus seeing 10, does that compromise client care or client, you
Hmm.
know, they have a duty there as well. And the doctors don't want to mess it up either. They don't want, their pride's on the line amongst other reasons. But so they don't get to select who they see. But they're very good at saying, okay, I'm not an expert in
Oh, yeah.
thoracic. I'm not a,
I'm going to call in
right.
a consult. Yeah.
Yeah, because they really don't want to get involved in those situations.
Yeah.
And I think lawyers do the same. Accountants are really good at that as well. I think more and more professionals, such as yourself, understand the risk reward of your practices and
Right.
where you thrive and where you don't.
Yeah. And I think it's not, I mean, part of that is I don't want to get in trouble for doing the wrong thing, but we lawyers, doctors, they go into those professions because they want to help people. They don't want to.
Right.
And so if the best result for this client is to hire a different lawyer, that's what I want for them. That it's not about me.
And it's true in my industry, in insurance. We're in a networking group, and I would say I turn down, hopefully professionally, half of the referrals that I get because it's not a fit for me.
Right.
That's doing that person a favor because they shouldn't be doing business with me, but it's also good risk management practice on my end as well.
Right. Okay. And so we talked about the people who obviously need E&O coverage, lawyers, engineers, doctors, accountants. Are there other categories that you see really should be looking into this?
I do. Contractors, general contractors mainly, but subs, what we call subs, or the trade, subcontractors. If a general contractor, and I have a couple, are designing a staircase or a handrail, or we tell them not to do this, but balconies.
Oh.
Well, if there's a design component, if they're doing the construction, that's one thing based off of the design.
There's somebody else's design. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But they'll want to go out and design that staircase. Now, if they're doing a fireplace mantle, that's one thing. And a lot of them do that. But this is where they get themselves into trouble because their coverage for contractors' liability, contractual liability, will not cover that design aspect. If you have a design component and you're drawing up plans and you're doing the blueprints and everything else, you've got an uncovered exposure. Got
it. So that's fascinating. And so the people who should be listening to this are not only contractors. In other words, don't do that.
Yes.
Don't be the engineer or the architect.
Yeah.
Do what you do. But also the ultimate consumers. If your contract comes to you and says, "Oh, no problem, I'll design that and we'll build it," you got to think about that. Like, well, if something goes wrong, I don't have any deep pockets here.
Exactly. And a lot of contractors, if you're bidding for a contract, their ultimate client will come and say, "Listen, can you throw this in? I'll give you the bid if you can design this handrail or this staircase if they're adding a second floor to an existing one-story structure." And the contractor will say, "Yeah, sure, I have somebody who can draft those plans and save you a ton of money." And we will go in and say, "That's a huge mistake. Hire somebody." If some contractors do have design professionals on their staff, and then we can address the exposure appropriately. But it's the smaller general contractors who want that bid, they have somebody right out of college who took drafting skills or whatever. Yeah. And then the contractor he or she thinks that they can build it to code, which they have to, obviously. Yeah. And that they have the technical ability to build it out, and so it'll be safe and sound. But if something goes wrong, it's a bad one. Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. I really, really appreciate you bringing that up. Something I hadn't thought about. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about in the E&O realm, because we're running out of time, is tail coverage.
Hmm.
So could be important for certain professionals. I think what that means is having coverage even after you're not doing that work anymore.
Correct.
Like you're retired.
Yeah, and that could be a whole basis of a separate podcast
Episode.
So broad, but I'll cut it down into really simple terms. Yeah, you want to be able to retire in peace, because that's what insurance is: peace of mind.
Right.
So you don't want to be somewhere on a beach in Fiji 5 years after you retire and you say, Kirsten, sorry, here's this claim, but something you did prior to when you closed your business.
Right.
Well, the claim was made 5 years after you retired. So you're like, well, I don't have a policy in force.
I'm not paying insurance anymore. Yeah.
Right. But I've got this tail coverage. So the insurance industry came up with a real brilliant way of protecting your past acts.
Okay.
Even after you've long shut, and it works perfect. It works just like as if you had the coverage in place in the first
Okay.
place. Yeah,
right.
It's very robust. Yeah.
Well, good to know. Okay.
Yes. You're going to be okay. Just make sure you elect the coverage. That's the only thing on your part, and no applications are required.
Excellent. Okay.
Super simple.
I'm going to go check that out. Thank you so much again, Dean. I really, really appreciate you talking to us. I learned a lot today, and I hope you'll come back and talk to us about cyber insurance as our next episode.
Oh boy, I would love to. Thank you so much.
All right. And thank you all for listening and watching. I hope you learned as much as I did and enjoyed yourself along the way. And we look forward to connecting with you next time.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Absolute Trust Talk Live. If you enjoyed listening in, then don't forget to subscribe. You can find us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may listen by searching Absolute Trust Talk. While you're there, we would also love for you to leave us a review. And then why not share your favorite episodes with family, friends, or colleagues too? You can find all of our shows and corresponding show notes by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com. You'll also find a variety of other free resources, including our ebooks, videos, blogs, presentations, and more. If you need help with your estate planning or administration, we also offer a free discovery call to help get the process started. You can find more information on booking your session by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com/scheduling. Don't forget to keep an eye out for our next live episode. If you join us for the broadcast, you can submit questions during the show. But if not, don't worry. You can always get in touch with us by sending a quick message to info@absolutetrustcouncil.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you soon.